So you want to be known as being upfront, good reputation. And I think a really well drafted and structured JV agreement, it makes it fair for everybody. If it seems too one-sided, it's not a really good agreement, probably, because everybody needs to feel like there's give and take, right? If nobody feels like there's give and take and there's not, transparency and equity within the deal, then somebody's going to be pissed off down the road.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and this is part 2 of a 2-part video series where we're diving in depth into joint venture agreements with an Ontario real estate lawyer. So again, so much thanks to Ryan Carson for spending the time to really sit down and just flush out this entire subject matter for all of us, because again, this is an area I know a lot of real estate investors, especially the new investors, they've got a lot of angst, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty around this entire subject matter. So I'm just really happy that we could shine the light on this and hopefully give you the confidence to move forward. Again, thanks to Ryan, but let's jump into it.
Or, they might, when they contact us, it might be go time right away, right? In which case, hey, perfect, we'll review all that. We'll set expectations and a schedule of hopefully when we're going to try to get things all done and accomplished, and then we just go from there.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate that context. So I'm sure there's some people watching or listening right now, and they might be starting to feel a little bit of, oh shit, I've got into a joint venture agreement. Maybe it was just on like a handshake, or maybe an elbow bump because it's COVID right now.
Yeah.
So if I've already got in, if we've already bought the property, is it too late to put together a joint venture agreement?
No, I think it's never too late, right? There's always something that can be done. There's always a solution to a problem. And not that this is a problem, right? But yeah, no, I don't think it's too late. I think at the end of the day, whether we just, carried forward from that exact date with the agreement as it is, and put in some wording to say the parties all agree that this, even though it's dated November the 19th, 2020, this relationship between Matt and Ryan has existed since January 1st, 2020. Like, we put maybe a little preamble in there that this has always kind of been existing. It's just not become in writing till November 11th or November 19th or whatever the case is, right? So you tie it in with a little bit of preamble wording to just solidify the fact that, yes, it's been operating and existing since an earlier date, but we haven't actually done the written agreement until now, and then flesh it all out.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's ever too late.
So let's say that I'm looking to be the passive partner and I'm looking to work with an active partner. They've already got their boiler template contract. They hand it off to me. What should I be looking out for? And as well, when I come to a lawyer, do I just kind of hand over the contract and do you look at it, or what sort of process is involved there?
Yeah, if it's not us or whoever your lawyer is drafting it from start for you, and it's more like somebody else has got their template they want to use and they want you to take it and review it and then sign it and send it back. Definitely before you sign that and give it back, get your lawyer to review it, because the devil's in the details on this, right? So you don't want to take for granted that it's probably in there, but then you're not really sure, and then it turns out again, shit hits the fan and then it's not, right? Usually myself or my other couple lawyers that help me with the JV agreements, we're not so much worried about reviewing and pointing out to the client, this is what it says from a perspective of what the rate of return is. We are going to highlight that, but I'm more interested in what does it have or not have for dispute resolution type scenarios. If bad stuff's going to happen, what's in here or not in here to help us solve the problems, right? We're short money, we need more money, people hate each other, whatever, right? That's typically what we try to look for and highlight in other people's documents. The funny part, I guess it's not funny, but the part that's kind of interesting is it typically costs us more money to review than it is just for us to go from our own document, because as you can imagine, we've already kind of vetted like probably 3 to 6 different precedents for various scenarios or whatever. And so we know what our document says, and then we know where we want to tweak it and punch in the specifics for our clients. So the base fee is less expensive to start on a review, but then we typically find like it's almost double or triple by the time we get through everything, because there's so much back and forth, right? Or like, well, you probably want to do this and that, and then maybe their lawyer is getting involved, going back and forth. So if you get somebody's precedent, absolutely, read it yourself, but get us involved. We're happy to review and read it, and just, give you a summary of this is what you should probably be a bit concerned about in here, or maybe it's green light, it's good, maybe it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just really want to reemphasize that one point you made about, dispute resolution mechanisms and items like that. I think a lot of newer investors, they get that boiler template from a potential partner. They look at it, they read it, they don't see anything wrong. But sometimes it's not just what's in it, it's also what's missing from the contract, right? Absolutely. So I've seen so many like boiler templates from investors, and oftentimes there's no real mediation, there's no dispute resolution, no shotgun clause. And all of a sudden, it was really just kind of designed with the pie in the sky mentality of we're just going to make money and let's just figure out how much money do I make versus how much money do you make, and everything's going to be rainbows and sunshine. But realistically, business can go sideways, right? And sometimes it's not even our fault or our partner's fault. It could be COVID, it could be black swan events and things like that. So again, even if everyone's entering with the best intentions, it's really important that we have everything down on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
And then, so, what sort of, and if you can share this or give us a couple examples, when joint ventures do seem to go sideways or go wrong, do you notice common themes, or is it always very specific to the individual joint venture?
I think there's obviously an element of like case specific, but I think it's to like our earlier points that are kind of making a theme here, which is it's the JV agreements lacking the problem solving mechanisms or provisions, as well as like the dispute resolution. I think that's where the problem lies more than anything. But I would say the other more common spot too, where we see issues, is the parties are talking about one thing, and in their words and understanding, that means something different than when it gets written down, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have found that before too, in doing a review where somebody thought they were going to get X and Y as, return on investment, but then the wording is actually something quite different, and it's only A and B. And so, just making sure again that, hey, yeah, you probably trust them because you're sold on the idea of like, hey, this can be a great investment. I'm going to make a lot of money, or, this is going to help us, we got one deal here, this deal is going to help us do 3, and then we're going to do 6, and then we're going to do 9, and, really grow our portfolio. Of course, you're excited about that. Otherwise, why would you be doing the deal? Mm-hmm. But how is it actually written? Like, don't just blindly trust that what you've talked about is what's going to be in the deal. So I think those are the 2 more common repeat offenses, if you can say that. It's people are maybe a bit too trusting, and they're not like, and sometimes it's not even that the party's doing it on purpose, like they're not trying to pull one over on somebody, but they just reused a precedent over and over again, and they're not lawyers. So lots of time people don't clean up the precedent properly, and it can be a bit comical sometimes, because it's like, why is this person's name in here? Like, who is this? Who's Tony? Like, this deals with Matt and Ryan. Like, who's this guy? Right. And that happens, right?
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the problem with using precedent, is you have to be really careful that you always have a foundational one that's clean, and you can go back and you can properly edit, as opposed to just keep taking the very last one you did, because sometimes you get cut and paste stuff going on and it doesn't work well.
Yeah. Yeah. Control, find, plus replace doesn't always catch everything. So it's really important that someone thoroughly go through that paperwork.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm sure some of the audience is just curious for a point of perspective. When we're talking about a joint venture agreement, what really are we talking about? Is this a 1-page document? Is it a 100-page document? You know, is there kind of a rough standard size that you tend to see?
Yeah, I mean, we have, like I said, we have a couple different variations. Some of our variations were built on, people wanting like a really, really like legalese kind of written one. Like, so it's naturally longer. It's probably like close to 30 plus pages. We got another one where people are like, look, I want this. It's got to be really like quick and dirty for me because my investors will get nervous if I hand them like anything over like 5 pages. So we have a smaller one. Obviously, it's hard to cover the exact same thing in both, but we've done the best we can to do that. We've just had to say it a bit differently. And then we've kind of got a couple that are in the middle that are, like 10 to a dozen or, 10 to 15 pages. We've got a couple that kind of are in that range too. So it really depends on the parties, on the client and their prospective investors and, what they're looking for and what they're used to and what they want. Like some investors want to see the book. They want the big one because they're like, okay, that makes me feel more comfortable and confident right away that this is like legit, like this is legal. This is,
there's some heft to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas, you give somebody just like this, like 2-pager and they're kind of like, what is this? Like you're asking me for hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're giving me a small little, like 1-pager. No, like I'm not good with that. Right. Like that doesn't make me comfortable or confident in this relationship, right? So so I think everybody's different, right? I know that we ran into one investor one time who like at some of these different meetings or conventions or groups or whatever, and he was presenting and speaking and is a very successful investor, and basically he's like, I've never had a written JV. I just handshake or napkin or whatever, and that's it. Like, I just don't do them. But I mean, I think in my opinion, he's been lucky. He's been lucky to date, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, or he's just really great with people. And if a problem comes up, he's got cash flow to just swallow it and be like, you know what? I'm just going to give them what they want because my reputation means more. I'm just going to buy this out. It's more than what they deserve, but I don't care because I need to keep my reputation intact, right? So I don't know how he's dealt with stuff or he's just dealing only with really close friends, but certainly not what I would say is the most conservative and protective way to move forward for sure.
Yeah, I think even if everyone has the best of intentions, it's just nice to have that backup paper shield just so that, again, even if like this is something I guess just for the audience that I've noticed, we all assume that our memories are 100%. But like you may enter in like literally you're exactly in alignment, but then 5 years go by, you're only maybe talking to that passive partner once a quarter, once a year. Our memories really, we can rewrite history quite easily in our brains. And so I think, again, that paper outline is just so critical, having that written joint venture agreement.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty just like anybody else. I mean, I'll go back when we're doing like employment, like reviews with our employees and we're looking at stuff and I'm like, it says that I got to give that bonus. Oh shoot. Okay. I'm staying corrected. That's what we agreed to. So we got to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So, so it's really, it's very helpful from that perspective. That's a fantastic point.
Yeah, this has been an amazing talk, Ryan. I literally don't know of any sort of content like this, so I'm really excited to be able to bring it to the audience. Anything else on the subject of joint venture partnerships before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, other than, it is probably the single most popular, way of doing real estate investing that I see on a volume basis.
Yeah.
But, if you are looking to discuss or talk about potential other structures that can be possible, whether it's corporate, whether it's limited and general partnerships, I mean, there are other ways of doing real estate ventures, and maybe that's a talk for us to do next time. But JVs are definitely probably the most popular, at least that would be on a volume basis. But you don't have to just feel as though it's the only. You know, there's GP-LP partnership agreements. There's corporate structure where you'd actually create a corporation and all be shareholders in it. It's really a question of, you know, what's everybody looking for, and how do people want to be involved in this? The JV, I think, is really popular because the active partner doesn't have to worry about qualifying for a mortgage. And I think that's why it's predominantly used. But it's great. It's a legal agreement and it's fantastic and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, really appreciate Ryan. For anyone watching that wants to get in contact with Ryan or Carson Law, we'll throw a link in the video description down below to all their contact information. Again, I can't emphasize enough, if you're going to get into a real estate transaction with another party, if you're getting into a joint venture agreement, make sure you get that written agreement in place and invest the little bit of money to have a lawyer look over it or draft it up for you, because again, that could save you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars years down the road. So again, thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks again to Ryan for spending the time to make this video. I really do think that part 1 and part 2 of this video series is the best content I've seen on joint venture agreements. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section. If you've got other questions for us, jump in the comment section. And as Ryan mentioned in this video, we're throwing all his contact information in the video description down below. So if you want to reach out to Ryan or any of his team, we're going to have Carson Law's contact information down below for you guys. I really encourage you, if you're looking at getting into a joint venture agreement, whether you write the agreement or whether your partner writes the agreement, make sure that someone on your team sits down, a lawyer ideally, and reviews the paperwork. I think it's absolutely critical, because if you're going to build an empire, you want to make sure you've got a strong paper foundation with your joint venture agreement. Again, if you guys enjoyed this video, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel, because we've got more great videos with Ryan coming out in the future, and we're going to be covering things like private lending and closing on different types of deals, so you're not going to want to miss that amazing content. Thanks, guys.